Chapter 62. Scram. Wei Hao flew into a rage. He didn't have a good impression of these thugs who bullied the weak and feared the strong. What written contract? Actually, it was just a trick used by hooligans to take things for free. Wei Hao didn't expect these thugs to be so daring to stop his and Wang Chong's carriage to demand money. Hurry up and leave. If you offend the young master, don't blame us for getting nasty. Xianxia and Meng Long stood up as well. The two of them were loyal to the young master, and the fact that their young master's carriage was stopped by a thug disguised as a young master made them furious. They would never be lenient to these local ruffians who did not do their proper work and bullied the good all day long. Seeing Xianxia and Meng Long's rage, as though they were about to beat someone up, the thug's expression froze, as though he was afraid. However, he soon sneered and glanced at the two of them with a haughty expression, seemingly disdainful of them. However, his disdain soon disappeared. Turning around, he turned to the easygoing Wang Chong and chuckled, "Hee hee, this Gongzi over here is a talented man who will surely become a pillar of the country in the future. Why don't you lend me some money? Don't worry, I'll return it to you." Audacious. Xianxia and Meng Long's faces turned cold. Their dantian exploded and a powerful aura burst forth from their bodies. Stretching out their hands, they grabbed the hands of the thug and with a flick of their wrists, they prepared to throw him out. Xianxia and Meng Long were experts in the military. Even though they were injured on the battlefield and had no choice but to retire to the Wang family, their fighting prowess wasn't something an ordinary person could match up to. This throw would at least send him 20 zhang away, breaking all the bones in his body. Wait a moment. Wang Chong suddenly stopped the duo. Wang Chong was still deep in thought. With Wei Hao, Xianxia, and Meng Long around, there was no need for him to worry about such a thug. However, upon hearing the voice and tone of the thug's final words, Wang Chong's heart skipped a beat. These words and this voice were all too familiar to Wang Chong. Your son is handsome and talented. He will definitely be a pillar of the country in the future. Whenever he met with the young masters of the aristocratic families, he would always have a smile on his face and repeat this iconic catchphrase in the same tone. Although it sounded like a compliment, those who had heard this sentence knew that it wasn't sincere at all. He could repeat the same words in front of hundreds of nobles' disciples, and he wouldn't change a single one of them. In his memory, Wang Chong had heard of it once. Even though they had only met once, Wang Chong would remember this person for eternity. Since then, Wang Chong had never seen this person again. Wang Chong turned his head and carefully sized up the gangster-like man. At first glance, Wang Chong couldn't recognize him at all. His messy appearance wasn't something that Wang Chong had any impression of. But at second glance, beneath the messy hair, the iconic thin lips, and the faint mole beneath them, Wang Chong's heart skipped a beat. He finally recognized him. It's really him. Looking at the gangster-like man before him, Wang Chong's heart was in turmoil. Wang Chong didn't expect that he would meet the person in his memory here under such circumstances. Compared to the high-spirited and ambitious man in Zhang Xian's memory, the man before him was in a far cry from his destitute appearance. Wang Chong, what's wrong? Wei Hao asked in astonishment. Wang Chong had been sitting there in a daze, not saying a word. No one knew what he was thinking about. In his opinion, there was no need for him to bother with these scum. He could just toss them out. He had no idea why Wang Chong called Xianxia and Meng Long to stop them. Wang Chong waved his hands and didn't say anything. Xianxia, Meng Long, let him go. Wang Chong said. Even though the duo was perplexed, they still followed Wang Chong's instructions and let go of the man. How much do you want to borrow? Wang Chong looked at the gangster-like man and asked. Even though he was different from what he remembered, he had yet to achieve his ambitions. Coming to the capital alone, he was unfamiliar with the place and people, and this was the most desolate period of his life. Honestly speaking, Wang Chong didn't have a good impression of this fellow. He was hypocritical, and vengeful. But even so, he didn't lack any merits. If he were to form a good relationship with him at this moment, it might be beneficial to him, the Wang clan, the entire Tang dynasty, and his plans. Give me 10 gold taels. No, it's 30 taels, 40 taels. Give me 100 gold taels. The gangster-like man offered 10 gold taels, and upon seeing that Wang Chong didn't object to it, he continued to raise the price to 100 gold taels. Bullshit. Even though Wang Chong didn't speak, Wei Hao couldn't help but curse. 100 gold taels? Do you think that it's copper coins? A hooligan who came out of nowhere and was unrelated to them actually dared to open his mouth and ask for 100 taels of gold. It was simply preposterous. Wei Hao dared to bet that this gangster was here for the 38,400 gold taels that Wang Chong earned at the Blue Bottle Pavilion. These hoodlums were simply too daring. They actually dared to extort money from the Wang and Wei families. Wei Hao! Wang Chong called out to his childhood friend. Turning around to look at the carriage, he lifted up the black cloth and took out a stack of gold. This is 1,000 gold taels. There's no need for you to return it, take it. Wang Chong pushed the stack of gold to the man. In an instant, the entire carriage fell silent. Wei Hao, Shanhai, Menglong, and even the coachman of the Wang clan fell silent as they stared at Wang Chong in shock. No one expected that Wang Chong would give 1,000 gold taels to a random gangster by the side of the road so casually. For me! Even the gangster-like man widened his eyes in shock. He couldn't believe that Wang Chong would really give it to him, and it was even more than what he had said. Do I look like I'm lying? Wang Chong smiled. Wang Chong! Wei Hao couldn't help but exclaim. No matter how much money he had, he shouldn't give it to a gangster like him. Thank you, thank you. Hearing Wei Hao's voice, the man's heart skipped a beat. He hurriedly stretched out his sleeves to hug the gold taels. To think that there would be such a fool in the world to give him 1,000 gold taels so casually. This was a trap that fell from the heavens. If you don't want to lose miserably, I have a small suggestion. There's an inconspicuous mechanism beneath table number 2 in the Golden Lion Denver. As long as you sneak over and break it with your feet, the men from the Golden Lion Den won't be able to tamper with the dice. Just as the man was hugging the gold taels, Wang Chong suddenly said with a smile. Hua! The sound of sweeping gold abruptly came to a halt. The gangster-like man abruptly lifted his head and his mouth was agape. He looked as though he had seen a ghost. How did you know? From the start to the end, he had never mentioned that he liked gambling, nor did he mention that he frequented the Golden Lion Denver. Even if he was beaten to death, he couldn't understand how this teenager knew that he often went to the gambling house. Furthermore, the Golden Lion Den had a good reputation, and it was precisely because of this that he frequented it. Yet this young man said that the Golden Lion Den cheated. He didn't think that he was a fool. After playing in the Golden Lion Den for so long, he hadn't found any opportunity at all. Furthermore, such a secretive matter was something that even the old gamblers of the Golden Lion Den didn't know of. How could a teenager like him know of it? What are you talking about? There's nothing in the capital that our young master doesn't know of. Shanhai and Meng Long immediately bellowed. Even though the gangster-like man looked as though he had seen a ghost, Shanhai and Meng Long didn't find it strange at all. There wasn't much that their young master didn't know of in the capital. After all, their young master used to be one of them. Shanhai, Meng Long, forget it. Wang Chong smiled and waved his hands to stop the duo. The matter regarding the Golden Lion Den wouldn't be a problem in the future. When the world comes to an end, many secrets would no longer be secrets. That was because the one who revealed the secret was one of their own. However, it was unlikely that anyone had discovered this secret yet. There seems to be only one gambling den in the vicinity of the Blue Bottle Pavilion. Other than the Golden Lion Den, I really can't think of any other place. Also, if you don't want to lose everything, the best solution is to not gamble at all. After saying those words, Wang Chong knocked on the carriage twice and the carriage slowly moved forward. This was the first time he came into contact with this future big shot, so it was sufficient for him to leave behind 1,000 gold taels. Too much was as bad as not enough. Saying too much might not necessarily be a good thing. Which clan's Gongzi is this? The thuggish man stood in a daze, silently watching Wang Chong's carriage disappear into the distance, unable to say a single word. Even though he was currently in dire straits, he had never thought highly of those scions of nobility. It was because he looked down on them that he acted so brazenly. But that youth, that teenager, the impression he had given him was too strange. Who cares? It's rare to meet such a fool. I'll go and have some fun first. The gangster-like man hid the gold in his arms tightly and then walked away. This book is a fantasy novel. Due to the needs of the plot, there's no need to question how he was able to carry 100 gene in his arms. Kirkert. Ha, everyone look who's here. It's the imperial brother-in-law. He's the imperial brother-in-law and I'm a descendant of the royal family. The moment the hoodlum-like man stepped into the Golden Lion den, the foul atmosphere in the hall immediately burst into laughter. The gamblers in the surroundings seemed to be familiar with him and they began mocking him. Hearing the eerie laughter from the surroundings, the gangster-like man halted his footsteps and his face flushed. You bunch of snobbish bastards, one day, I'll make all of you grovel beneath my Yang Zhao's feet. The gangster-like man thought furiously. Chapter 63. Seeing that Wang Chong had already paid the 1,000 gold taels to the other party, Wei Hao didn't say anything more. Setting off from the Blue Bottle Pavilion, Wang Chong brought Wei Hao, Shanhai, and Meng Long to a tavern to celebrate. Then the carriage set off. However, it didn't return to the Wang family residence. Instead, it circled around the capital before arriving at the place where the two Sindhi Buddhist monks were staying, the White Agate Jewelry Shop. Masters, there is a total of 37,000 gold taels here. Place it all here. As for the rest, according to our previous agreement, I will send people to deliver it to Sindhu in the form of various rations. What do you think? Wang Chong found Ablanadin and Arloja and poured the 37,000 gold taels into their room. The dazzling pile of gold in the room was extremely eye-catching. Sure. The two Sindhi monks were overjoyed. On the final day, when Wang Chong held the sword duel gamble at the Blue Bottle Pavilion, they sneaked over as well. However, they hid amongst the crowd and didn't appear. To be able to forge an ordinary piece of Hyderabad ore into a sword by Wang Chong, it could be sold for several thousand, even 30 to 40,000 gold taels. Furthermore, in the end, Wang Chong wasn't even willing to sell it. To the two of them, this was an inconceivable matter. It was truly an eye-opener for the two of them. They were completely convinced by Wang Chong's capability. In fact, just a moment ago, they even wrote a letter to the Sindhi High Priest, strongly recommending Wang Chong to cooperate with them. Right now, even if Wang Chong wasn't able to fork out 90,000 gold taels, the two of them were willing to cooperate with him. With such a talent, they would be able to raise the price of Hyderabad ore to the maximum. He was the best candidate for Sindhu to cooperate with. Even the Abbasid Caliphate and Karak's Spazanu couldn't compare to him. Seeing the duo agree to his proposal, Wang Chong chuckled. Everything was going according to his plan. As long as he obtained the approval of the two Sindhi monks, he would have much more time to spare. Moreover, if Sindhu wanted to exchange tens of thousands of taels of gold for rations and transport them to Sindhu to resolve the song problem, this would be a massive project that would take a lot of time and effort. After settling this matter, the next step was the most important goal of this trip. Masters, I don't need the 300 June of Hyderabad's ores for the time being, so I'll leave it in your care for now. In addition, I don't have enough manpower here. In the future, the Hyderabad ores will definitely attract many covetous eyes. I don't know if the two of you can stay and help me when we reach an agreement in the future. Wang Chong said sincerely. Covet. Wang Chong's words seemed to have touched the taboo in the hearts of the two Sindhi Buddhist monks. Arloja's body jolted, and his dark and skinny body suddenly exuded a powerful aura. Even Shanhai and Meng Long couldn't help but retreat in shock. I would like to see just who dares to covet our Hyderabad ores. Gongzi, rest assured, leave the Hyderabad ores with us. We will guarantee your safety. The two of them spoke decisively. The Hyderabad ores concerned the tens of millions of Sindhu's population. Everyone hoped to use the Hyderabad ores to exchange for rations to resolve the Song of Sindhu. As such, the monks dispatched for this mission were all the most elite experts of Sindhu. If the two of them didn't possess extraordinary capabilities, how could they dare to bring along 90,000 gold taels worth of ores to the entire world to promote their business? The situation that Wang Chong spoke of happened to be a taboo for the two of them. The two of them would never allow such a situation to occur. These two monks have such high cultivation bases. Looking at the aura that the two of them exuded, Wang Chong was astonished. Even though he had heard that most of the Sindhi Buddhist monks possessed extraordinary cultivation, he didn't expect the cultivation of these two to be so high. From the looks of it, even Xin Hai and Meng Long weren't a match for them. However, this was even better. Not only would he obtain the Hyderabad ores, he would also gain the help of two top-notch experts. To him, this couldn't be any better. Masters, I'll be thanking you then. I'll leave this place to you. Wang Chong bowed before leaving the white agate jewelry shop with Wei Hao, who was looking at the floor littered with gold with a look of pity. The sword duel gamble at the Blue Bottle Pavilion had already ended. However, to many people, the storm caused by this matter wasn't over yet. Just as Wang Chong was returning to the Wang family residence, in the residence of the Chung clan, a group of people were gathered around a metal mountain that was as tall as a human. The metal mountain was none other than the metal mountain that Wang Chong had split into two at the entrance of the Blue Bottle Pavilion. Wang Chong felt that it was too heavy to carry around, so he tossed it aside as though it was trash. However, to those who had witnessed the astounding slash of the Wuxia steel sword that day, this metal mountain was a priceless treasure. Thus, after Wang Chong left, the Chung clan immediately took a portion of it while the other half was taken away by someone else. Did you see it clearly? A huge crowd gathered around the metal mountain. Not only were there the elders of the Chung clan, the young and the senior swordsmiths, even the clan head of the Chung clan, Ching Hong, was alarmed. So many famous swordsmiths, as well as the renowned swordsmiths from the West, had participated in the duel. Yet, an unassuming young man won the duel. The sharpness of that sword was too astounding. Even the Chung clan, which had several centuries of history as a swordsmithing clan, didn't dare to claim that they could sever so many famous swords with a single slash. However, the most shocking and unacceptable thing to the Chung family was that Iron Mountain. It was still acceptable for the Chung clan to sever so many famous swords. Given the Chung clan's capability, as long as they worked hard, it wasn't impossible for them to catch up to the other party's footsteps. However, it was different to sever a metal mountain that was as tall as a human. That represented another kind of pinnacle, an insurmountable pinnacle. In this era, there wasn't a single person or clan that could achieve such a feat. This included the Chung clan, Zhang clan, Lu clan, and Huang clan. It represented a swordsmithing technique that surpassed this era. There was an insurmountable gap between the swordsmithing techniques that the various clans possessed and this technique. This wasn't something that could be caught up with in a few decades or centuries. Such a conclusion was hard for the Chung clan to accept. Thus, their first reaction was disbelief and impossible. Wang Chong must have done something to the metal mountain. Thus, after the duel, the elder of the Chung clan, Qing Yuqing, snatched half of the metal mountain and transported it back to the Chung clan residence. Clan head, we've already observed it for a long time. The cut on the metal mountain is as smooth as a mirror, and it seems like it was made with a single slash. This isn't something that can be done by a human. A skinny elder of the Chung clan with a grizzled beard said with reddened eyes. He had been staring at this place for a long time, carefully observing every inch of it, but in the end he still couldn't find a single flaw. As an old swordsmithing master who had dabbled in swords for decades, he was able to discern the patterns on metals as though they were in the palm of his hand. He was almost certain that no one had done anything to the metal mountain. Not only so, I've also observed it carefully. There isn't any difference between the cut at the bottom of the metal mountain and the top, and there aren't any signs of it weakening. In other words, if the metal mountain was tall enough, it could have continued cutting downwards. Another elder of the Chung clan said. His back was slightly hunched, and his coarse face was filled with wrinkles. As the oldest elder of the Chung clan, his words held absolute authority in this aspect. Gasps sounded in the surroundings. There were many important tasks in the clan, so most of them didn't attend the sword duel gamble, and they didn't witness the slash with their own eyes. Even so, just this half of the metal mountain was enough to shock them. To these young and old swordsmiths who had dabbled in swords for their entire lives, it was hard for them to imagine what kind of sword could be so sharp. Recalling the rumors about how the sword remained unscathed despite doing so much, to the point where there wasn't even a scratch on its body, it was even more inconceivable. To many swordsmiths who had dabbled in swords for their entire lives, it was truly incomprehensible to them. The courtyard was completely silent. After the two elders expressed their opinions, all the elites of the Qing family in the capital fell into silence. On the other hand, Qing Yuqing and clan head Qing Hong's complexions were incomparably awful. The Qing clan's ambition was to surpass the other clans and become the most formidable swordsmithing clan in the Central Plains. All along, the Qing clan had thought that the greatest threat and competitor would come from the Zhang clan, Huang clan, or Lu clan. Never in their wildest dreams could they have imagined that the final victor would be a young lad of unknown origins. "Bring me my sword." Clan head Qing Hong suddenly spoke up. "Clan head." Upon hearing those words, everyone's face paled in fright. Even Qing Youqing's face darkened, and he hurriedly tried to dissuade the clan head. "Clan head, you mustn't destroy the ancestral sword because of this matter." In the Qing clan, there was only a single sword that belonged to the clan head, and that was the clan guardian sword forged by the founder of the Qing clan. Even though such a sword was worthy of the clan head's admiration, for the past few centuries, the clan head had only placed it on the ancestral altar, worshipping it day and night. He didn't dare to take it down, needless to say, use it. This was the foundation of the clan. Even if it was just a piece of wood, the Qing clan wouldn't use it. Otherwise, it would be a huge sin to leave a scratch on it, even if it was as small as the tip of a needle. "I said, bring me my sword." Clan head Qing Hong stretched out his arm and spoke once more. This time, his tone was completely different from before. Clearly, this wasn't a discussion but an order from the clan head. In the clan, no one dared to defy the orders of the clan head. In next to no time, a Qing clan disciple walked out with an ancient sword that was a meter long, simple in design, and emitted a strong smell of incense. Upon seeing this ancient sword, all of the Qing clan members lowered their heads in reverence and reverence. Clang! As the sword was unsheathed, a chilling aura gushed into the sky like a serpent, and the temperature in the courtyard plummeted. The chilling sword qi spread out like a tsunami, forcing everyone to retreat. The Qing clan guardian sword, Ice Abyss, was forged by the founder of the Qing clan. It was incomparably sharp, and it was the #1 sword of the Qing clan. Clang! Chapter 64. Wherever the Ice Abyss passed, the human-sized metal mountain would be sliced apart like mud. However, halfway through, an ear-piercing sound could be heard, and the Ice Abyss was unable to continue any further. Everyone's face changed. The head of the Qing clan, Qing Hong, felt his heart trembling. With a flick of his wrist, he hurriedly pulled out the Ice Abyss. His reaction was already very fast, but a few scratches had appeared on the body of the Ice Abyss that was as clear as a cold pond. Even though the scratches were short and thin, not affecting the Ice Abyss at all, everyone couldn't help but feel their hearts ache. This was the Qing clan's guardian sword that had been passed down for centuries, the symbol of the Qing clan. The slightest flaw was unacceptable to them. Clan head, Qing Yuqing couldn't help but say. This was the result of forcefully using a sword to hack at the Ice Abyss beyond one's capabilities. If one were to hack at it any further, the flaw would be even greater. However, the culprit, Qing Hong, stared at the scratches on the body of the sword in a daze, as though he didn't hear anything. It was as though he had suffered a huge blow. It can only reach half. The Ice Abyss was forged by our Qing clan's ancestor. It took 10 years for this sword to be forged, and it can easily slice through armor made of well-tempered steel. Such a sword only appears once every 10 years. How can there be such a sword in the world that is even more formidable than the one forged by our Qing clan's ancestor? I don't believe it, I don't believe it. Investigate. Investigate it for me. I must know who that Wang Chong is. The voice of the head of the Qing clan, Qing Hong, echoed in the entire Qing clan residence. At the same time, A group of people had also gathered in the residence of the Zhang clan in the capital. They were all gathered in a circle. However, different from the Cheng clan, on the stone table of the Zhang clan, there was a black and ugly piece of metal that was only as thick as a pinky. What do you all think? The head of the Zhang clan was in his 40s. Dressed in a white robe that reached the ground, he looked gentle and elegant. Instead of a blacksmith, he looked more like a teacher. The matter at the Blue Bottle Pavilion didn't just catch the other clans off guard, the Zhang clan was caught off guard as well. However, the only thing that was different from the others was that up until now, the others were still confused and didn't know what was going on. However, the Zhang family in the capital was different. They were well aware of Wang Chang's identity from the very beginning. They even knew that Wang Chang's sword was made from Hyderabad ore. It's really hard to believe that a sword forged from this kind of ore could be so sharp. It seems that 300 taels of gold per June isn't expensive at all. But I'm a little curious. How did the young master of the Wang clan know about such a secret? He looked like he was only 15 years old and didn't look like he had a lot of experience. Furthermore, those two Sindhi Buddhist monks are extremely stingy. They won't easily let others touch their ores. Even our Zhang clan only gave them such a small piece. Even our Zhang family couldn't see through it, so how could a child like him know? The grand elder of the Zhang clan, Zhang Qiming, said as he stroked his snow-white beard. The room fell silent. Even Zhang Tsong and Zhang Jian were unable to answer this question. Just like everyone else, the two of them were shocked by the outcome at the Blue Bottle Pavilion. Even until now, I still find it hard to believe that the Hyderabad ore could be so sharp. Zhang Jian said honestly. On the matter of Wang Chong, Zhang Jian had to admit that there was something uncontrollable about this child of the Wang clan. Zhang Jian couldn't put his finger on it, but every time he saw him, he was unable to treat him as a child. Actually, it isn't too difficult to verify this point. The head of the Zhang clan turned to look at the small piece of Hyderabad ore on the table. Don't we have something ready-made here? Even though this little bit isn't enough to forge a sword, it should be enough to forge a small dagger. We just have to give it a try and we'll know. Everyone nodded their heads. It wasn't an easy task to forge a small dagger with this little bit of material and display one's highest level of craftsmanship. This was something that none of the other clans were capable of. However, the Zhang clan was different. As the head of the swordsmithing industry, this was also the reason why the Zhang clan was superior to the other clans. Grand Elder, I'll leave this to you. I want to see the finished product before daybreak. The head of the Zhang clan said. The latter agreed without any hesitation. Grabbing the small bit of Hyderabad metal on the table, he stood up and walked into the room, as though he had just agreed to a trivial matter. The fire in the furnace burned from dusk to daybreak. After an entire night, a new dagger of around 4 cun in length and the thickness of a pinky finger appeared before everyone, placed on the stone table. But upon seeing this dagger, Zhang Jian, Zhang Tsong, and all of the Zhang clan disciples who had seen the Wuxia steel sword at the Blue Bottle Pavilion were astonished. Grand Elder, are you certain that this is a weapon forged using the materials from Hyderabad? Zhang Jian looked at the pitch-black dagger on the table doubtfully. They had seen Wang Chang's Wuxia steel sword before, and there was a wondrous pattern on the body of the sword, reminiscent of flowing water. This was something that other swords didn't have. However, the dagger forged by the Grand Elder didn't have the slightest bit of pattern on it. I don't know if the Hyderabad ore you speak of is the same. But this is indeed forged using the materials provided by the clan, and it's the best weapon that I can forge. I have used all of the swordsmithing skills of our Zhang clan on this. The Grand Elder of the Zhang clan said. His voice was fatigued, and it seemed like he had spent a lot of time forging the sword last night. Zhang Tsong and Zhang Jian stared at one another, speechless. The difference between this and the sword that Wang Chong had forged was simply too great. It was impossible to tell that they were the same type of sword. There's no need to argue. There's no need to doubt the Grand Elder's skills. The white-robed head of the Zhang clan stepped forward, took the dagger forged using the Hyderabad ore, and held it in his hands. Bring a sword over. Soon, a disciple brought a sword over. This sword was of the same tier as the sword that the Zhang clan had sent to the Bluebottle Pavilion for the duel gamble. Clang. The weapons clashed, and a sharp whistle sounded in the air. A cut appeared on the sword in the right hand of the Zhang clan's clan head. The dagger cut deeply into it, but the sword didn't break into two. Those present were all elites of the Zhang clan, and it was clear that the dagger forged by the Grand Elder was superior to the Zhang clan's sword in the clan head's right hand. However, it was still a far cry from the level of Wang Chong's sword, which was able to sever dozens of famous swords in a single strike. Upon seeing this result, even the Grand Elder fell silent. Even though he wasn't present at the Bluebottle Pavilion's duel gamble, he had heard a lot about it from the disciples of the clan. Clearly, the weapon that he forged was still a far cry from the unique #1 sword in the world. Clan head, if the news from the Bluebottle Pavilion is true, and the materials used are consistent, then Wang Chong's sword is forged from Hyderabad ores. At the very least, there's one thing that we can be sure of. The reason why the sword is so sharp isn't just because of the Hyderabad ores. There must be an incredible swordsmithing technique as well. Furthermore, this swordsmithing technique is even more formidable than the one used by our Zhang clan. The Grand Elder had a fatigued expression as he spoke, but at this moment, he suddenly opened his eyes, and a sharp glint shot out from his eyes. I suggest that no matter what, we should maintain a friendly relationship with the Wang clan and that Wang Chong. If we can obtain that unique swordsmithing technique, our Zhang clan will definitely be able to surpass the other clans and become the #1 swordsmithing clan in the Central Plains. The Grand Elder's words determined the future direction of the Zhang clan. This night was destined to be a sleepless one for many of the prestigious clans who participated in the duel gamble. Zhang, Huang, Cheng, and Lu clans had their candles lit all the way until dawn. The same situation was occurring in the Imperial Army as well. However, different from those prestigious clans who were concerned about the swordsmithing and its materials, Zhao Fengshen was concerned about something else. In the duel gamble, Zhao Fengshen's greatest harvest was the discovery of an unparalleled sword. However, the only thing that Zhao Fengshen didn't expect was that he wasn't able to buy a single sword despite offering a high price of 40,000 gold taels. Just like the first time they met, the young man named Wang Chong rejected him without any hesitation. This was the second time. Given Zhao Fengshen's identity as an Imperial Army commander, it was a huge humiliation for him to be rejected in such a manner. If it was in the past, Zhao Fengshen would have ignored him. However, whenever he thought of how Wang Chong's Wuxia steel sword was able to slice apart more than a dozen top-notch swords and sabers, as well as a steel mountain taller than a human, Zhao Fengshen couldn't help but find it hard to swallow his food and sleep. Zhao Fengshen was a true warrior. As a warrior, he understood the importance of an outstanding weapon to a true warrior. This was something that couldn't be measured with money. The sword that Wang Chong forged was completely different from all the other swords that Zhao Fengshen had seen before. For some reason, upon seeing the true appearance of the sword, Zhao Fengshen suddenly had a feeling that this was his sword. This was the sword that he had been searching for, the sword that he had been searching for all this while. Even without the conflict with Huang Xiaodian, Zhao Fengshen still wished to obtain that sword. Zhao Fengshen didn't know who Wang Chong was, nor was he aware of his background. However, even though Wang Chong had left, he had left his name behind. Furthermore, given his close relationship with the Wei clan Gongzi, as long as Zhao Fengshen wanted to investigate his background, it wasn't too difficult. Lord, just when the candle flame was extinguished and the sun was rising, a flurry of panting footsteps could be heard. How is it? Seated on the floor, Zhao Fengshen supported his chin with his hand and abruptly lifted his head. Lord, I found it. That lad's name is Wang Chong, Duke Jiu's grandson. The bearded subordinate of the Imperial Army shouted. What? Hearing those words, Zhao Fengshen's face darkened and his heart turned cold. Zhao Fengshen didn't know who Wang Chong was, but there wasn't a single person in the Central Plains who didn't know of Duke Jiu. Chapter 65. If the other party was really a descendant of Duke Jiu, even though Zhao Fengshen was an Imperial Army commander and had the backing of the Zhao clan, he wouldn't dare to act recklessly. What was more troublesome was that these scions of nobility didn't lack money at all. Furthermore, they were extremely willful and couldn't be judged by common sense. It was possible for the scions of nobility to reject a bid of 40,000 gold taels, just like what happened in the day. Zhao Fengchen wasn't confident that the other party would sell the sword to him. The bearded subordinate had followed Zhao Fengchen for many years, so how could he not know what Zhao Fengchen was thinking? In fact, the news that he had found was even more serious than what Zhao Fengchen knew. That person was a famous profligate scion in the capital. Not only was he willful, he was also rebellious and liked to go against his family. There was a high chance that such a person would reject Lord Zhao's request. Lord, this isn't good. Even though Duke Jiao is famous, we can't act recklessly. However, this matter isn't completely hopeless. The bearded subordinate from the imperial army suddenly said, "Oh!" A gleam flashed across Zhao Fengchen's eyes. "What do you mean?" "I had my brothers investigate the matter, and by chance, I found out that that lad has an uncle who is serving in our imperial army. He's a minor guard at the northern gate. Even though we can't act recklessly on the matter regarding the sword, if Lord were to meet that uncle of the Wang clan, it might be better than going to the Wang clan personally." The bearded subordinate of the imperial army offered his advice. This time, Zhao Fengchen was truly surprised. There were 4 gates in the royal palace. The north, south, east, west, and west was where the Son of Heaven resided. Since the Son of Heaven resided in the north, who would dare to reside above him? Thus, even though it was known as the northern gate, it was usually closed. The minor guard there was actually the lowest position in the imperial army, as well as the most insignificant one. Zhao Fengchen didn't expect that the son-in-law of Duke Jiao would be serving in such a place. It probably has something to do with the Yao clan. Zhao Fengchen thought. The imperial army was the personal guard of the Son of Heaven. Even though the Yao clan was of high status, there was a limit to how far they could reach in the imperial army. Zhao Fengchen guessed that given the Wang clan's old master style, there was a high chance that the capability of that uncle of his was limited. However, this had nothing to do with him. As these thoughts flashed across Zhao Fengchen's mind, an idea formed in his mind. Pushing away the teacup before him, Zhao Fengchen stood up and walked out. While Zhao Fengchen was leaving the room, countless pigeons were flapping their wings in the dark night, flying out of the capital in every direction. Investigate. 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 It's impossible for such a big thing to go unnoticed. In the capital, there's nothing that can be hidden from the swordsmithing clans. If the sword didn't belong to them, then it could only belong to someone else. Deep in the mountains, wild in the mountains, small villages, small towns, all of you. This is my best chance to surpass the great swordsmithing clans. As long as we can find the origin of those treasured swords, we can become the #1 swordsmithing clan in the world. Countless messages were sent in all directions by carrier pigeons. No one believed that the sword and saber in Wang Chang's hand appeared out of thin air. The greatest surprise of participating in the sword duel gamble at the Blue Bottle Pavilion was that even the great swordsmithing clans didn't know of the origin of the sword. The swordsmithing industry was inextricably linked, and the forging of a sword involved many aspects. There were ores, swordsmithing masters, furnaces, coal. No one believed that they wouldn't be able to find the slightest trace of the origin of the sword. As long as they could find the origin of the sword in Wang Chang's hand wouldn't be important anymore. To many of the local powers that had been suppressed by the great swordsmithing clans in the capital, this was the best chance to surpass them. Peng ping peng. Early in the morning, before the sun had even risen, the sound of punches could be heard from the backyard of the Wang family residence. Dressed in a gray cultivation technique robe with a belt tied around his waist, Wang Chong was practicing his punches in the courtyard. With the crisis in the clan resolved and the matter regarding the Hyderabad ores settled, Wang Chong's heart, which had been hanging in the air, slowly settled down. Now, he could finally focus on martial arts. Peng ping peng. Wang Chong executed the celestial steps and his fists would either tremble or explode, exerting a tremendous force. The air around him surged, producing a sound reminiscent of a tidal wave. 3 chi away, potted plants as thick as a child's arm trembled from the impact of his punches. The cultivation of Herculean punch required one to focus all of one's strength. Only when the air around one's body and footsteps were moving like tidal waves could one be considered to have grasped the essence of the technique. Wang Chong spent a long time before he finally managed to stretch his meridians and muscles to adapt to the might of the Herculean punch. It's about time, Wang Chong thought. The reason why Wang Chong chose to cultivate the Herculean punch while cultivating the dragon bone art wasn't just because of the might of this fist technique, allowing him to exert strength several times that of his own. More importantly, once he cultivated it to the point where the air around his body was surging, producing a sound reminiscent of a tidal wave, he would be able to utilize the intent of the Herculean punch to stimulate his blood and qi, speeding up the cultivation of the dragon bone art. These two factors complemented each other. Wang Chong had unintentionally discovered this trick. Closing his eyes, Wang Chong's blood began to surge. Like tidal waves, it flowed through his meridians and blood vessels. Along with the flow of his blood, Wang Chong could feel a weak and refreshing origin energy seeping into his body. Passing through his blood and meridians, the origin energy finally seeped into Wang Chong's bones and marrow. Under the effects of this energy, Wang Chong could clearly feel that the rate at which he cultivated the dragon bone art had increased significantly. A thought flashed through Wang Chong's mind and he abruptly punched out. Without using any special moves, Wang Chong simply executed the ordinary Herculean punch. Paired with the dragon bone art, he began to cultivate in the backyard of the Wang family residence. Time slowly passed, and with no one to disturb him, Wang Chong quickly entered a trance-like state. After an unknown period of time, Wang Chong exhaled deeply. Beads of sweat rolled down his body and even his clothes were drenched. In this cultivation, Wang Chong could feel that his strength had grown significantly. My conjecture is correct. Using the Herculean punch together with the dragon bone art can indeed speed up the cultivation of the dragon bone art. Wang Chong thought. This cultivation was clearly much faster than usual. It was equivalent to 2 days' worth of cultivation. This was the effect of the Herculean punch. However, the cultivation of the Herculean punch was extremely taxing on one's stamina. From last night till now, Wang Chong felt that it was about time. I should return to my room to wash my face first. Mother and little sister should be awake by now. Exhaling deeply, Wang Chong retracted his cultivation. Picking up a towel hanging on a nearby tree branch, he wiped the sweat off his face and walked back to his room. When he passed by a fake mountain, Wang Chong suddenly thought of something and threw a punch. Boom! Wang Chong's heavy punch struck the fake mountain, and with a loud boom, the fake mountain shattered into countless pieces. Not bad. To be able to shatter a mountain with a single punch, the might of this punch is already sufficient to deal with an origin energy tier 6 or tier 7 expert. Wang Chong smiled and nodded his head in satisfaction. This was the effect. Given his current cultivation realm, it was impossible for him to split open a fake mountain like this. However, through the might of the Herculean punch, he was able to create a might comparable to an origin energy tier 6 or tier 7 expert. The time I have spent cultivating is still too short. I should be able to reach even higher realms in the future. Wang Chong chuckled in his heart. Everything about the Herculean punch was good, but when it wasn't strong enough, it would still hurt badly. Wang Chong flung his sore palms and quickly returned to his room. The matter at the Blue Bottle Pavilion hadn't erupted yet. At the very least, it was still calm on the surface. Thus, despite the huge commotion yesterday, the Wang family residence was still peaceful. Wang Chong hurriedly washed up, ate his breakfast, and left the residence alone. Next, it's time to carry out that matter. A thought flashed across Wang Chong's mind as he stood on the streets. In his previous life, the Tang dynasty had countless brilliant marshals and great generals. However, these people were like shooting stars, falling one after another in that huge upheaval, disappearing into the darkness of history. And of all these generals, there was one that left Wang Chong the most regretful. His name was So Yong-sun. In this world, there were many things that were different from Wang Chong's memories, and So Yong-sun was one of them. He was an elder of 3 dynasties, an important official, and one of the legendary marshals under Wang Chong of the Tang dynasty. 50 years ago, this name was like the sun in the sky, and he wielded unparalleled influence in the military. But now, his name had almost been forgotten by the people. In the Tang dynasty, many people thought that he had died a long time ago. This was because he was much older than Wang Chong's grandfather. By the time Wang Chong's grandfather and the old master of the Yao clan ascended to power, he had already retired. And now, even Wang Chong's grandfather was addressed as Duke Jiao. From this, one could imagine how old that person was. The reason why Wang Chong remembered him was because several years later, when the upheaval arrived and thousands of foreign cavalry swarmed into the capital, he was the one who single-handedly stopped the foreign cavalry, buying time for the civilians in the capital to evacuate. However, it was a pity that he had overexerted his potential and died in the capital. Buried together with him was the unparalleled martial art that was reputed to be the most lethal in the Tang dynasty. Wang Chong could still remember what one of those dying seniors had said to him when he was in danger and accepted the imparting of energy to him of the few surviving seniors. Although you have obtained our lifetime's martial arts, it's a pity that So Yong-sun's unique skill has become extinct. If the old man wasn't so stubborn, perhaps everything would be different. But now, you can only rely on yourself. Chapter 66. Wang Chong had memorized many martial arts techniques, but none of them could compare to the art of god and demon obliteration created by So Yong-sun Old Martial Su. In this reincarnation, Wang Chong's greatest wish on the path of martial arts was to obtain the art of god and demon obliteration, the #1 technique in terms of lethality, and accomplish what he was unable to accomplish in his previous life. However, it was easier said than done. To obtain the recognition of Old Martial Su, he had to go through many trials, and it was not an easy task. Character, talent, and strength were all indispensable. Even if he had all of them, he might not be able to succeed. Even during the previous dynasty, when the late emperor asked for a prince to be under the name of So Yong-sun, to be his disciple and inherit his secret art, he was rejected. The difficulty was unimaginable. Moreover, the gates of the Su residence were closed all year round, and one could not even enter, so it was even more impossible. However, Wang Chong knew of a chance, and it might be the only chance to get in touch with this unparalleled old marshal of the Tang dynasty. In his previous life, when he was homeless, Wang Chong met an old servant of the Su family by chance and heard about it. It turned out that it was different from what many people imagined. So Yong-sun did not accept disciples. On the contrary, in the last 10 years of his life, he had been trying to find a qualified successor, and he even did it himself. If not for that old servant, many people would not have known that in the west of the capital, under the 1,000-year-old locust tree, there was a stern, white-haired old man who appeared punctually with a chessboard every day. He was the famous war god So Yong-sun. So Yong-sun had appeared there for 10 years, but no one had noticed him. Even those who had played chess with him did not know his true identity until they died. If Wang Chong wanted to get in touch with So Yong-sun, this was his only chance. To the Ghost Tree district in the west of the city. On the street, Wang Chong hailed a carriage and went straight to the west of the city. The Ghost Tree district in the west of the city was densely packed with people. Many old people and children were playing here. According to the words of the other world, this was actually a public square. Wang Chong got off the carriage and went straight to the old locust tree. I wonder which one is So Yong-sun. Wang Chong thought to himself. There were many people playing chess in the square. It was not easy to find So Yong-sun. Most importantly, Wang Chong had never seen him before. Even during that great turmoil, when the foreign cavalry invaded the capital, Wang Chong was very far away and couldn't see it clearly. Fortunately, I asked a few more questions back then. Wang Chong secretly rejoiced. Back then, out of respect for the old marshal and out of benefits, Wang Chong had asked a few more questions. Thus, he knew that So Yong-sun's chessboard was different from others. His chessboard was gold-plated, which was the best way to identify him. However, when Wang Chong walked around the Ghost Tree district, he couldn't help but be stunned. He's actually not here. On the east side of the 1,000-year-old locust tree, Wang Chong immediately saw a stone table with a golden chessboard on it. Although the chessboard was there, the person was not. Only a 4 to 5-year-old child was there, yawning in boredom. "Little guy, where's the old man playing chess here?" "I don't know. He only said that someone was coming and told me to give him this chess piece. He will only appear after I pass it." The child was chubby and looked very cute. Hearing someone's question, he opened his eyes. As he spoke, his chubby little hand handed over a black chess piece. The chess piece was covered in sweat. Wang Chong looked at the black chess piece that was covered in sweat and was stunned for a moment before understanding. This was a small test, and the content of the test was to play chess. There was only one chess piece, so one could only place it once. If the fruit was placed correctly, old Marshal Su would naturally appear. If it was placed wrongly, it would be equivalent to being eliminated, and old Marshal Su would naturally not appear. Wang Chong understood the other party's meaning, and his mind instantly became clear. "Little guy, this silver ingot is for you." Wang Chong stuffed the silver ingot over and took the black chess piece from the child's hand. Then he quickly began to observe. The chessboard was crisscrossed, but there weren't many chess pieces. The black and white chess pieces were all gathered in one corner. It looked as if two armies were fighting for a high ground. "This is a localized chess game." Wang Chong took a look and couldn't help but laugh. This was a standard iron chess game. Obviously, old Marshal Su wanted to test the other party's ability to lead troops in battle. What the Tang dynasty needed was not one or two martial artists, but a general who could lead troops in battle. So Yongsun, as a legendary general of the Tang dynasty, obviously hoped that his successor would have a certain level of military ability. Perhaps it was because he was approaching the end of his lifespan, or perhaps he was worried that there would be no one to inherit his unique skill, so Yongsun didn't have too many difficulties in this aspect. In this iron chess game, as long as the black side placed a chess piece in the center northwest corner of the white chess pieces, they could change their situation, delay a little, and successfully pass the first test. However, all of this was different for Wang Chong. In his previous life as the Grand Marshal of the Central Plains, Wang Chong wasn't chosen by the elders because of his martial arts. On the contrary, in his previous life, Wang Chong started too late and missed the optimal foundation establishment period. Even if he tried his best to catch up, he still wasn't outstanding. The reason why Wang Chong was chosen by the remaining elders, in the midst of danger and became the Grand Marshal of the Central Plains was due to his commanding ability. Thereafter, the army led by Wang Chong proved his worth with his performance. In the few years that Wang Chong led the army, the number of foreign cavalrymen he killed was even more than the number of foreign cavalrymen he killed in the past few decades. He was hailed as the most formidable war god in the history of the Central Plains. So Yongsun was truly looking for the wrong person to test him with such a chess game. Waiting for death wasn't his style. Defending passively wasn't his style either. Wang Chong placed the black stone on the board. Instead of placing it at the northwest corner of the white stones, he placed it firmly at an unexpected location. After leaving the Ghost Tree District, Wang Chong strolled around the city before returning home to continue his martial arts training. It would be grandfather's birthday in a few days. Since the Wang clan was a clan of generals and ministers, martial arts was also part of the examination. Wang Chong didn't dare to be careless in the slightest. Unknowingly, it was already evening. Wang Chong was cultivating the dragon bone art in the backyard when he suddenly heard a commotion. "Brother-in-law, why are you here?" A surprised voice sounded in the front courtyard. It was his mother's voice. "Shuhua, is Chonger back? I'm looking for Chong." "Chong? He's cultivating inside." It was his mother's voice. She didn't seem to mind it at all. "It's uncle." Wang Chong retracted his cultivation and was surprised. He recognized that the agitated voice belonged to his uncle, Li Lin. However, it was rare for uncle to come to his house. Even if he did, he would usually be with Big Aunt Wang Rushuang. However, Wang Chong could only hear his uncle's voice and not his big aunt's. This was the first time such a situation had occurred. "Let's take a look." Wang Chong retracted his cultivation and walked in the direction of the voice. Wang Chong met Big Uncle Li Lin in the main hall. "Chong, do you have the number 1 sword in the world?" Upon seeing Wang Chong, Big Uncle Li Lin went straight to the point and his voice rose a few octaves. His face was flushed and he seemed extremely agitated. Big Uncle Li Lin had a wooden personality and rarely spoke. This was the first time Wang Chong saw him so excited. "Uncle, did someone look for you?" Initially, Wang Chong was perplexed as to why Big Uncle Li Lin would look for him. However, upon hearing those words, he immediately guessed something. "Chong, how did you know?" Li Lin was astonished. However, recalling Wang Chong's previous actions, he immediately understood. "Chong, you must have never imagined that it was General Zhao Fengchen. Commander Sun was also there." Li Lin didn't hide anything and told him the whole story. As it turned out, when Li Lin was still in his room, Zhao Fengchen knocked on his door and walked in. Accompanying him was the commander of the Imperial Army, Chen Huai. It was one thing for Zhao Fengchen, but Chen Huai was his direct superior. Li Lin had served in the Imperial Army for a long time, but this was the first time an Imperial Army superior had taken the initiative to look for him. Chen Huai first looked for Li Lin and spoke a bunch of praises for Li Lin's previous performance. He said that he was preparing to transfer him to the West Gate. Then, he suddenly changed the topic and said that he was willing to pay 42,000 gold taels to buy a sword for him. And the one who sold the sword to him was someone he had never expected, Wang Chong. At that moment, Li Lin felt as though he was going insane. What kind of sword could be worth 42,000 gold taels? What was even more ridiculous was that the person who sold the sword was his nephew, Wang Chong. Li Lin was stunned. He couldn't wrap his head around the situation at all. His first reaction was, "Is this a joke? Wang Chong is only a 15-year-old child. How can he have a sword worth 40,000 gold taels? Chong, tell me what is going on. Is what they said true?" Li Lin grabbed Wang Chong's arm and asked anxiously. "Yes." At this moment, Wang Chong relaxed and nodded his head. "Is this?" Li Lin released his arm and returned to his seat. Looking at Wang Chong, he took in a deep breath. It was too shocking. Li Lin widened his eyes in shock as he stared at Wang Chong. It was as though he was meeting him for the first time. Wang Chong's mind was in turmoil. He was also contemplating the same question. It was within Wang Chong's expectations that Zhao Fengchen would look for Big Uncle Li Lin and have him plead on his behalf. Wang Chong had expected Zhao Fengchen to look for him personally. However, this was for the best. The fact that Zhao Fengchen had taken the initiative to look for Big Uncle Li Lin had cleared up some of the thoughts in Wang Chong's mind. "Uncle, do you want to be the Grand Marshal?" Wang Chong suddenly asked. "What?" Li Lin was shocked by Wang Chong's words. He hurriedly waved his hands and said, "Don't spout nonsense. Do you think that the Grand Marshal is someone to joke about?" Wang Chong smiled and didn't pursue the matter. "What about the Grand Marshal?" "I don't have that capability," Uncle Li Lin said. Hearing those words, Wang Chong chuckled. Without a doubt, Big Uncle was ambitious. Wang Chong could sense it from his eyes. Chapter 67. No one was willing to be left out. There was no one who didn't want a high position. Big Uncle was the same as well, even though he was just a minor guard of the gates. Of everyone in the Wang clan, Big Uncle Li Lin was the least valued. In terms of commanding troops and commanding subordinates, he couldn't match up to his father. In terms of fighting prowess, he couldn't match up to Little Uncle, and in terms of political maneuvers, he couldn't match up to Big Uncle. Therefore, when he became the young guard of the palace gate, his grandfather never helped him again. Grandfather thought that Uncle wasn't capable enough to be of great use. As a minor guard of the North Gate, even though his position wasn't high, it was far from the whirlpool. His safety was sufficient to protect his big aunt and uncle for the rest of their lives. However, Wang Chong's view was different from his grandfather's. Toward big aunt and uncle, Wang Chong was filled with gratitude. In his previous life, when the Wang clan was in trouble, big aunt and uncle were the ones who helped the Wang clan out. On top of that, Uncle might not be outstanding, but his character wasn't bad. He was a qualified soldier. Back then, in that calamity, quite a number of Imperial Army members fled. However, Uncle Li Lin, a minor guard of the North Gate, fearlessly gathered the imperial army to form a defensive line. In the end, he died on the battlefield. Wang Chong would always remember his back view when he left. Broad, sturdy, and imposing. A person's capabilities could be nurtured later on. Grandfather only saw one side of him, but he didn't know that there was another side hidden within him. If he was given a chance and groomed, Uncle would be able to become an independent figure. And Zhao Fengchen was the best opportunity that came knocking on his door. What better opportunity could there be than to follow this future Grand Marshal of the Imperial Army? Uncle, do you believe in me? Wang Chong looked at Uncle Li Lin and suddenly asked. Li Lin was taken aback. If it was in the past, when Wang Chong was only 15, he would only laugh at Wang Chong's words. However, after the previous incident, Li Lin didn't dare to underestimate this nephew of his anymore. In truth, no one in the Wang clan dared to underestimate Wang Chong anymore. If it weren't for him, the Wang family would have fallen into a great crisis. Furthermore, the reason why Zhao Fengchen and Shen Huai sought him out was also due to Wang Chong. Chong, what do you want to say? Li Lin said. Uncle, if possible, don't go to the West Gate. Following Zhao Fengchen is much more useful than going to the West Gate. Wang Chong said solemnly. But Zhao Fengchen might not agree to it. Regardless of whether he was heading to the West Gate or following Zhao Fengchen, Li Lin felt as though he was in a dream. These are not things you can go to whenever you want to. Don't worry, he will agree. Wang Chong smiled and drew his sword with a clang. The moment the sword was unsheathed, a cold wave rolled in the room, and a sharp chi-ji traversed the void, as if it wanted to cut the room in half. Seeing the cold gleam on the sword in Wang Chong's hand, Li Lin took in a deep breath. All along, he couldn't understand why Zhao Fengchen would spend 40,000 gold taels to buy a sword, and he couldn't understand why Wang Chong was so confident that Zhao Fengchen would help him. However, upon seeing the Wuxia steel sword in Wang Chong's hand, Li Lin suddenly understood. Even though he didn't know much about swordsmanship, he could tell that the sword in Wang Chong's hand was different from any of the swords in the market. Wang Chong had only taken out this sword, not even pointing it at him, but Li Lin already felt an extreme sense of danger. Chong, why do you have such a sharp sword? Li Lin couldn't help but ask. Hee, uncle, you don't have to worry about that. Tell Zhao Fengchen that I don't need 40,000 gold taels. I can sell this sword to him at the same price as before, 35,000 gold taels. Since Zhao Fengchen knows how to make use of you to approach me, given his intelligence, he should be able to understand my intentions. Wang Chong chuckled. The matter regarding the Hyderabad ores wasn't inexplicable, just that it was troublesome. When the time came, the people here would be able to figure it out. Chong, thank you. Li Lin didn't ask any further. This nephew of his had given him too many surprises. Hearing his words, Li Lin didn't find it strange at all. Taking Wang Chong's Wuxia steel sword with him, Li Lin left the Wang family residence. Walala. When Wang Chong's uncle, Li Lin, left the Wang family residence with the Wuxia steel sword, under the veil of night, countless pigeons gathered from all directions and flew into the inns and taverns. What? Nothing. I can't find anything. There's no news regarding that sword. You can't find the source of the sword? None of the swordsmiths have seen such a sword before? There's no news at all. There's no change in the boundaries? While Wang Chong was relaxing and practicing his martial arts, unbeknownst to anyone, countless swordsmiths and prestigious clans were exerting all of their efforts and resources to search for news regarding the Wuxia steel sword. Everyone thought that since the 4 great swordsmithing clans didn't know of the Wuxia steel sword, the sword must have originated from somewhere outside the capital. Due to the long-distance transportation, there was bound to be a leak. However, despite the efforts of the thousands of swordsmithing clans, they couldn't find any news regarding Wang Chong's Wuxia steel sword. From the looks of it, it was as though the sword was unique, and there was only one in Wang Chong's hand. Impossible! This news left many dumbfounded. They couldn't accept it. When the news spread, the Wuxia steel sword in Wang Chong's hand suddenly became incomparably valuable. Have you found anything? At the same time, A figure wearing a white mask stood on the peak of a mountain in the outskirts of the city. Around him, there were many figures standing tall. Lord, we found it! That Wang Chong is the descendant of Duke Jiao of the Tang dynasty. We've already found the Wang family residence. However, the Wang family residence is heavily guarded, and the imperial army is patrolling the capital. It won't be easy for us to enter. A voice replied, but it wasn't in the language of the Central Plains. The group of people spoke in the language of the western regions. Under the moonlight, Zhang Xian could clearly see that these people had high noses and deep eyes. Every single one of them had a scimitar hanging by their waist. They were all from the Abbasid Caliphate and Carax Spazi. You fools, do you think that we're here to wipe out the Wang family? Swords and sabers don't appear out of thin air. Since he forged them, there must be more than one of them, and he must have left behind quite a few ores and materials. Our goal is to steal these swords and materials. As long as we achieve our goal, we can end the battle as soon as possible. How many guards and Imperial Army soldiers do we have? That sword is extremely important to our Carax Spazinu. Regardless of the price we have to pay, you must bring one of them over. The leader wearing a white mask said viciously. His final words revealed his identity. Other than the Carax Spazinu merchant, Mozid, who had met Wang Chong once before, there was no one else who would dare to do such a thing. Yes, Lord. Under the moonlight, the group lowered their heads. Soon, they turned around and disappeared into the night sky. The sun rose and the moon set. In the blink of an eye, a day had passed. Papa! In the Wang family residence, Wang Chong flicked his hands repeatedly, and as though two pythons, he moved them in the midst of a raging gale. Every single strike was incomparably heavy. Papa! Wherever Wang Chong's elbow and arm landed, the sturdy fake mountain in the courtyard would shatter, and rocks would scatter all over the place. Ever since Wang Chong had placed his focus on martial arts, he had been cultivating for a longer period of time each day, and his strength had grown stronger as well. Complementing the Herculean fist with the dragon bone art, Wang Chong could feel his cultivation improving every single day. Given time, it wouldn't be a problem for him to reach Origin Energy Tier 6. Once one's cultivation reached Origin Energy Tier 6, everything would change. One would be able to cultivate secret arts that could raise one's strength, speed, or dexterity. Once one's cultivation reached that level, the feeling that Wang Chong was experiencing right now would be completely different. Young master, something bad has happened. There's someone outside. Just as Wang Chong was cultivating, a flurry of footsteps sounded. Shanhai and Meng Long rushed in from outside. What's wrong? Wang Chong frowned. Exhaling deeply, he slowly retracted his cultivation. He remembered telling Shanhai and Meng Long not to disturb him when he was cultivating. Young master, there's someone outside. Shanhai said. Is there a need to make such a fuss? Wang Chong frowned. Young master, you'll know once you take a look outside. Shanhai and Meng Long said. The duo hesitated. At the entrance of the Wang family residence, Wang Chong finally saw the person that the duo was talking about. Facing the entrance of the Wang family residence, a 7-chi tall brawny man was kneeling on the floor with his head lowered. Young master, this fellow has been here since early in the morning, clamoring to meet me. We were afraid that he would wake madam up, so we had no choice but to call you over. Shanhai and Meng Long said helplessly. Wang Chong didn't pay much attention to the person at first, but when he took a second look, his heart skipped a beat. It's you? Wang Chong was astonished. He recognized this person. This person was none other than the full-bearded brawny man who had leaped down from the 3rd floor of the Blue Bottle Pavilion and hacked at Wei Hao. In the end, his sword was severed and he collapsed to the ground, spurting blood. He was one of the participants in the sword duel gamble that day. Wang Chong couldn't understand why he would appear here, kneeling at the entrance of his residence. Gongzi, you must accept me as your disciple. If you don't agree to it, I will kneel here forever. The full-bearded brawny man lowered his head and said earnestly. What? Wang Chong's mind was instantly thrown into turmoil by this declaration, and he felt an indescribable sensation. He suddenly understood why Shanhai and Meng Long came to look for him. Accept him as his disciple? You must be joking. He was only 15, and he should be at the age to acknowledge others as his teacher. Yet, there was someone who wanted to acknowledge him as his teacher. Gongzi, I'm not asking you to teach me martial arts. I only hope that you can teach me your swordsmithing skills. As long as Gongzi agrees to it, I am willing to be at your beck and call. I am willing to serve Gongzi forever. The full-bearded brawny man's voice was deep. As he spoke, he respectfully lifted a broken sword high above his head and remained motionless. It's the 4-chi broadsword that was severed. Wang Chong took a glance and suddenly realized that the sword in the full-bearded brawny man's hands was the 4-chi broadsword that he had slashed at Wei Hao with the Wuxia steel sword. For some reason, in the hands of the full-bearded brawny man, the broken sword seemed to weigh 1,000 jin. Wang Chong could even smell a sorrowful aura from the tall figure. This sorrowful aura was something that Wang Chong had smelled on many people before. In his previous life, when the central plains fell and the earth shattered, Wang Chong also felt the same sorrowful aura. In that instant, Wang Chong suddenly understood. Just like how the mission was to him, to the 7-chi tall brawny man kneeling on the floor, swordsmithing was his dream as well. Chapter 68. What's your name? Wang Chong asked. My name is Tuoba Guyuan. Gongzi can also be called Zhang Guyuan. Kneeling on the floor, Tuoba Guyuan said. It's him. Upon hearing those words, Wang Chong's heart jolted. He stared at the full-bearded brawny man in astonishment. Wang Chong didn't know Tuoba Guyuan, nor did he have any relationship with him. However, Wang Chong knew of this person. In his previous life, he was the most famous swordsmith in the Central Plains. He didn't join any power, and even the Zhang, Lu, Cheng, and Huang clans were rejected by him. This infuriated the clans, and they banded together to blacklist him. However, with his own capability, he made a name for himself in the capital. As long as the sword he forged was labeled with the name Guiyuan, he would be able to sell it at a price even higher than those of the major swordsmithing clans. Before the catastrophe, he was publicly acknowledged as the #1 swordsmith in the Tang dynasty. When the Wuxia steel weapons became famous throughout the world, his greatest achievement was forging the Guiyuan sword, which even the Wuxia steel weapons were unable to break easily. Furthermore, it was forged using ordinary materials. The only problem was that the forging of the sword required a complicated process and craftsmanship. Even Tuoba Guyuan wasn't able to forge many of them. Thereafter, when the catastrophe occurred, Tuoba Guyuan lost all his chances. Wang Chong didn't expect that the person kneeling before him would be the #1 swordsmith in the world. Wang Chong took in a deep breath. This was truly an unexpected harvest. It seemed like his auction of the Wuxia steel sword at the Blue Bottle Pavilion and the fight for the title of #1 sword in the world had not only attracted the attention of the prestigious clans and weapon merchants, it had also attracted the attention of the #1 swordsmith in the world. This was something that Wang Chong couldn't have imagined. One must know that Tuoba Guyuan's personality was extremely violent. Just like a herd of wild horses, it was impossible for him to submit to any clan. The fact that many swordsmithing clans were rejected in his previous life was proof of this. If he hadn't used the hunger marketing method in his previous life to sell his swords at the Blue Bottle Pavilion, he would have missed out on the opportunity to meet the future #1 swordsmith. This is too unexpected. Although I have forged the Wuxia steel sword, it is based on the memories of my past life and the knowledge of the future. Moreover, forging swords is not my main profession. If there's someone to share the burden with me, that person will be able to share a lot of the burden. Wang Chong's heart was in turmoil. He was just about to agree, but he didn't expect that the rewards would be so much more than he expected. If he had the help of a future top swordsmith, he would be able to carry out a bigger plan. In terms of swordsmithing, Tuoba Guyuan was the best choice. Get up, Wang Chong said. Young master, please promise me. Tuoba Guyuan was still kneeling on the ground stubbornly. I've already promised you, Wang Chong said. Ah. Tuoba Guyuan lifted his head in shock. Disbelief was written all over his face. All swordsmiths and prestigious clans were extremely secretive about their swordsmithing, and they wouldn't easily divulge their secrets to others. Tuoba Guiyuan had heard that the Wang clan was a clan of ministers and generals, and it was even more prestigious than the other swordsmithing clans. It wasn't easy to enter the Wang clan. Thus, he had already mentally prepared himself that he would have to go through a huge ordeal before he could enter the Wang clan. Just that, Tuoba Guiyuan didn't expect it to be so easy. He had only knelt for a moment before agreeing to it. It was so easy that it was unbelievable. Is Gongzi for real? Tuoba Guiyuan still couldn't believe it. Of course. Wang Chong smiled. He stretched out his hands, intending to help Tuoba Guiyuan up. However, he realized that Tuoba Guiyuan didn't budge at all, as though he was rooted to the ground. This fellow is an expert. Wang Chong widened his eyes in shock. He possessed an origin energy tier 5 cultivation realm. Even though it wasn't too high, he could easily shatter a boulder with just a jolt. For him to be unable to help Tuoba Guiyuan kneeling on the ground, it was clear that the other party's strength far surpassed his. However, thinking about it, it was impossible for Tuoba Guiyuan to become the #1 swordsmith in the world despite being suppressed by several prestigious swordsmithing clans in his previous life. Thank you, Gongzi. Thank you, Gongzi. As long as Gongzi is willing to teach me swordsmithing, I'm willing to serve Gongzi for the rest of my life. Tuoba Guiyuan wasn't aware of Wang Chong's thoughts. Upon hearing that Wang Chong had agreed to it, Tuoba Guiyuan was delighted. He immediately kowtowed to the other party, and peng. Tuoba Guiyuan wasn't someone who would lower his head easily, but that depended on what it was. As long as he could learn the best swordsmithing technique, Tuoba Guiyuan was willing to pay any price. After kowtowing, Tuoba Guiyuan stood up on his own without Wang Chong's help. Shanhai, go back and report what happened here to mother. Wang Chong turned around and said. Ever since the incident with Yao Guangyi, his mother had been lax with him. As long as it didn't affect the family, his mother wouldn't interfere in many matters. Yes, Gongzi. Shanhai replied and left. Tuoba Guiyuan, since you wish to follow me, you will be a member of the Wang clan from now on. Meng Long, prepare a side room for him. Wang Chong said. After which, Wang Chong headed for the Ghost Tree district alone. Thus, Yongsun's matter was still a secret and no one knew the truth. Before there was any progress in this matter, Wang Chong didn't wish for too many people to notice his existence. Thus, he didn't bring Shanhai, Meng Long, or Tuoba Guiyuan with him. Wang Chong was extremely careful. He didn't head straight to the Ghost Tree district. Instead, he strolled around the area and after confirming that no one was tailing him, he headed to the Ghost Tree district stealthily. A massive locust tree stood at the center of the square and its canopy was spread open like an umbrella. In this place, the elderly and children were busy entertaining themselves. As such, no one noticed Wang Chong walking among them. Beneath the locust tree, Wang Chong saw the gold-plated chessboard once more. Thus, Yongsun still didn't appear. However, there was an additional stone on the chessboard. A white stone. Little fellow, what's your name? Wang Chong looked at the child beside the chessboard and patted his head. Und die Jian. They call me Jian. Carrying the locust tree on his back, the little fellow licked a stick of candied hawthorn and replied absent-mindedly. Jian. Wang Chong chuckled. He found this child adorable and was about to compliment him when a thought flashed across his mind. Wang Chong was stunned. He had heard of this name before. Back then, when the old servant of the Su residence told him about the past, he had mentioned this name. So Yongsun rarely accepted disciples in his life. Those who could catch his eye were few and far between. But in his life, there were still a few who were barely able to catch his eye and almost became his disciples. Although these people were not chosen by So Yongsun in the end, So Yongsun had given them pointers in martial arts, and each of them had achieved great achievements. This, Dai Jian, was one of them. The art of god and demon obliteration was said to be a mystical art in the world. It was a great art of slaughter, and even immortals and Buddhas avoided it. It had extremely high requirements for one's innate talent and bone structure. Most of the time, even if So Yongsun wanted to spread the word, the other party might not be able to cultivate it. Forcefully cultivating would only do more harm than good. Although Dai Jianjian was not chosen by old Mr. Su due to his lack of talent, he was not accepted into the sect. However, he was the only one that old Mr. Su had taken a liking to and kept by his side, even giving him some pointers on martial arts. It's his doorman. Wang Chong suddenly came to a realization. The old servant once said that although So Young-sun had never accepted a disciple in his life, he accidentally picked a child and took him in as a doorman. This child brought So Young-sun a lot of joy in his later years. So Young-sun liked him a lot. But it was a pity that he died together with So Young-sun in that great turmoil. The child had always treated So Young-sun as his grandfather. During that great turmoil, the old servant once wanted to call him away, but the child hugged So Young-sun's corpse and refused to leave. In the end, he died together with So Young-sun. When the old servant recounted the past, tears flowed down his face and he cried bitterly. Listening by the side, Wang Chong couldn't help but sigh. But Wang Chong did not expect to see him here. Looking at the child who was engrossed in licking the candied haws, Wang Chong's feelings were completely different. When that happened, he should only be in his teens. Wang Chong thought to himself. Su Zhengchen was still in the midst of looking for a disciple. Clearly, it was only after suffering many setbacks that he truly noticed this child. Life is short, and many things are discovered after missing them. Wang Chong suddenly decided to do something to change the fate of So Young-sun and this child. Little guy, do something for me. What is it? The child raised his head and said absent-mindedly as he continued to eat his candied haws. If you can make that old grandpa laugh and make him happy, I will give you a silver ingot every day. Ah! The child finally moved his eyes away from the candied haws. He tilted his head and stared at Wang Chong, his eyes wide open. Although he was young, he knew that a silver ingot could buy him a lot of candied haws. Really? The child said in disbelief. Of course. Wang Chong nodded his head and said seriously, but there was a hint of sadness in his eyes. So Young-sun was an elder of 3 dynasties, a god of war, and the #1 expert in the army. Although his life was full of legends, it was also full of tragedy. He had never been happy in his life. And this sorrow and misfortune, from birth to death, ran through his entire life. So Young-sun was the descendant of an important minister of the former Sui dynasty, and he had the bloodline of a princess of the Sui dynasty. So Young-sun may have made great contributions, but this was the source of his misfortune. When Su Zhengchen was still a lowly figure, no one had mentioned this bloodline in his body. But when he was at the zenith of his achievements, consecutively defeating the Turks, Yusang and Goguryeo, and expanding the borders of the Great Tang to the north of the Yin Mountains, this bloodline immediately became a fatal flaw. In So Young-sun's life, there were many times when he was falsely accused of plotting a rebellion to overthrow the Tang dynasty and rebuild the Sui Empire. In any dynasty, this was a huge taboo. Welcome to Immortal Cultivation Audiobooks, your gateway to the mystical world of Xianxia. Dive into legendary tales of martial arts, spiritual growth, and immortal ascension. Here, we bring you full-length English audiobooks of the best Wuxia and Xianxia stories, from young prodigies to ancient sect wars. Perfect for fans of Against the Gods, Martial World, and tales of demons and gods.